dancer, choreographer, director, Eddie worked with Janet Jackson in the 1980s. He danced in the videos Nasty, What Have You Done For Me Lately, and When I Think of You. Shortly thereafter, at just 17 years old, Eddie began dancing with Michael Jackson, appearing in Smooth Criminal, The Way You Make Me Feel, Speed Demon, and performances like the Grammys in 1988, the Super Bowl, and the performance of Dangerous in 1993.
Yes.
Okay, so Eddie was Michael Jackson's principal dancer from 1987 to 1989 on the Bad World Tour and on the Dangerous World Tour in the early 90s. Eddie has also starred in TV and film projects and so much more, worked with Mariah Carey, Paula Abdul, Jennifer Lopez, Ariana Grande, I'm sure so many other amazing people. Eddie, again, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been blessed. This has been an amazing, incredible journey for me.
Yeah, I mean, I can't wait to get started. Just seeing you in so many of these projects, so many iconic works. So let's just get started. Let's dive in. How did you start working with Michael Jackson?
So it began with I heard there was going to be an audition. Actually, I have to go back further. So there was an audition for a mystery project that Francis Ford Coppola was going to be working on. And that's all we kind of knew. We heard it was for Michael. So that was Captain EO. So I was 14 at the time. And I went to the audition. And I remember I was there like all day. And then I got a phone call that I had gotten the job. And I was so excited. I'm 14 years old. I'm going to dance for Michael Jackson. And it's going to be the coolest thing ever. And the next day, they set up my fitting, so that I could, go in and get fitted for costumes. The next day I got a phone call from production basically telling me that they were no longer going to need me. And I was like shattered. And then I got another phone call from production saying, hey, sorry about that. That was a mistake. And please come in, blah, 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 blah. And then I got another phone call saying that they were no longer going to need me. And I found out what happened was Coppola was concerned about having anybody underage because of the long hours they were going to have to work.
Right.
Because the original story, Michael was always about saving kids and, and doing stuff to help kids. And so we were going to be the kids on the planet. There were two of us, the kids that he would come to save, that we were imprisoned by the, evil queen. And then he saves us and everything's, great. At least that's what I had been told, later. But then they cut that part of the story. They just took that part of the story out. So again, at 14 years old, it's pretty heartbreaking. I was like,
so close, right?
So close. And I told myself when that happened, I said, well, that's not going to ever happen again. So I worked really hard. I graduated when I was 16. I had started working for Janet and I got emancipated. So I could work like an adult, but I'd already graduated high school. Everything was like, cool. So then I get another, now we're flashing forward. It's like, there's an audition notice for Vincent Patterson. And it's, another mystery project that we all knew what it was. So we didn't know the song though. We just knew it was for Michael. So I went in, everything was great. They invited me to come back to the callback. And I was like, great. It was going to be the next day. I remember the day of the audition too. I asked if I could go in one of the first two groups because I was actually going in for a fitting for a commercial at the time. So they were really they helped me out. They were like, they made sure I was like, I think I was in the second group and they got me in. And then right after that, they were like, hey, just come back tomorrow. Everything will be set up and you'll be at the callback. And I was like, yeah. So I came back to the callback. I remember walking in and walking down the hall and I ran into Vincent. And Vincent walked up and he goes, what are you doing here? I was like, they told me to come to the callback. and he goes, oh, no. He goes, you already got the job. You don't have to worry about it. And I was like this, okay.
Amazing.
So I didn't have to do the callback, which was fantastic. And I think what happened is, I believe that Michael was aware of who I was. And I think he was there when we were auditioning. We just didn't know it. And I think And the only reason I say this is that when we were working on Smooth Criminal, he it's the part where he throws the coin, it goes across the room and lands in the jukebox, and then he does the little chest pop. So he we were sitting there waiting while they were setting stuff up, and he turned around, and it's the first time he ever spoke to me. And he goes, "Hey, you know my sister?" And I went, "What?" And he goes, "You're in her videos." And I was like, yeah. And he goes, "Yeah, you do all the turns in Nasty." And I was like, "I did." And he goes, "Was that a camera trick?" And I was like, No, I did that." And he goes, "That's what she said." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And I was like, it was I remember coming home from that day of shooting, and I was so excited that he knew me, like from that, like that he paid attention to that. And it was cool to know that he was supportive of his sister that way. You know, that he was very he was watching to see what she was doing. He was excited for her. It was a really neat experience. And to be able to have worked with her and then work with him, it was like, she prepared me, working with her and working with Paula prepared me for being able to be on a set with all these amazing dancers. And I was the youngest, by a bit. And being on a set with these adults that were people I looked up to. And I learned so much because we spent so much time doing that video, or short film, as he would say, for me, that was like the best schooling like I could have ever gotten. People will go to universities and you can't pay enough to get that experience because you're learning from the best dancers, from the best choreographer. Vincent created such an environment of creativity when we were on set. And I remember like us watching Bandwagon and him explaining how this was, we were doing kind of we were emulating it, but not copying it. So we want to be inspired by it, want to be inspired by what they did. And then when we saw it, because we would individually go watch it, and he would go, "You're going to be that guy." So you would watch a certain dancer in that film and that they had certain moves, and okay, well, that's what he does. So I got to learn how to do that. So those are the things that then you would creatively bring to the table. I do the duck walk, which is like, throwing my hands going by him. Plus I was the youngest. So like they had that pick somebody that could do that over and over and over and over and over. Cause now I couldn't do it at all. I wouldn't be able to bend that far. I'd be like, oh gosh, my knees.
It's funny. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. So like that experience of being taught by Vincent about details and being taught about how to, it's not just learning a dance step, it's experiencing a moment. And those are the things that are like, they're so valuable. They're the things that I like try to tell the kids that I teach. It's not just about the step, it's what's behind the step. If this is what you choose if you choose to do this as a living, you have to learn that. And I think kids that really understand that are the ones that you are seeing, like, Dancing for Lady Gaga now. They're incredible because they're not just dancing on stage. They're part of the show. They're part of the experience. And I think that's the biggest thing that I got coming away from that. And that's how I got on the tour, just being on set. And he one day turned and said, "Hey, would you ever want to do a tour?" And I was like, "Oh, sure, that'd be fun." Not knowing that he was actually asking me like that day. Right. And then 3 months later, I get a phone call and they're like, "Hey, Mike wants to know if you still want to do the tour." And I was like, then I had to turn to my parents. I was like, "Can I go on tour with Michael Jackson?" And they're like, "Yep." And I was like, "Yeah." And
you were 17 at that point, right?
Yes.
So amazing.
Yeah. So when I did the video, I was 17. We were in rehearsals. I was still 17. And then one day I remember Frank came up to me. He was his manager, Frank DeLeo. And he goes, "You never told us you were 17. I was like, "You didn't ask." and he goes, "Well, that's going to be a problem." And I said, No. I'm emancipated. So like I'm legally an adult. And he goes, "Oh, okay. No worries." And I was like, "Woo."
That's too
and then
funny.
I did turn 18 when we actually left for Japan on our first leg. I turned 18 when we did that.
Okay. So that was good, all divine and good timing.
Yes, great timing.
I want to just talk to you a little bit about Smooth Criminal and then get into the Bad Tour because we have a photo of you here in Smooth Criminal. And I wanted to give you a fact that you probably know already, but some of them watching out here might not know. But Smooth Criminal actually is one of the very few that has recently reached 1 billion views on YouTube in the fall of 2024. How do you feel about that? 1 billion views.
That's crazy. It doesn't surprise me though, because it's such an iconic video in the sense, you know, people look at Thriller and see how special that is. I remember as a kid how that affected me. I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. You know, it was truly, to me, bringing the musical back, you know, because musicals were gone at that point. And it set a standard that from that point on, music videos became relevant. And then to be in something like Smooth was very interesting because the camera, you weren't watching people from afar, you were actually in it. Like the camera was inside of the club. It was following us. It was following him up the steps. So like, it was the first time that again, it was immersed. It was like, it was another character within the film. And I think that's what really, really sets it apart. Plus, you know, what a cool idea, you know, a group of gangsters and he comes in there and then he transforms them and they become the good guys at the end. Like, it's crazy. Like, and I think that's what that essence of what his message was always about. You know, you go in there and no matter how bad you might think some people are, you don't know until you get in there and you can change them. And I think that's a beautiful statement.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because I did get the honor recently to talk to Vincent Patterson, and he was mentioning that like one of the things he did was give out kind of like acting exercises. And
yes,
everybody had a character so that no matter where you looked, even if it wasn't during a specific like section of choreography or whatever, everybody was doing something. They were in the moment, like you said.
Yes, because he didn't want any dead space, you know, and it goes back to what I was saying about like, you're not just a dancer doing steps. You're moving this story along from this point to this point. From the second he throws that coin, you don't keep your eyes off of him. I mean, it was we had gun holsters underneath our jackets, which you never see.
Wow.
With rubber guns in that weighed it down so that we could physically feel the gun underneath our armpit, which changes how you do stuff because you're aware that you have a gun underneath your like, but again, it adds another thing of realism, you know?
Right. Yeah.
You know, like you see us reaching into our jackets. That's what we're reaching for. There's actually a gun there.
That like this blows my mind. I'm loving the like behind the scenes details because I could never have imagined, you know?
Yeah. Like, yeah. It was wild because you put it on, you know, and then you would get the gun holster on. It was under here so that you could reach for it.
So
and the weight part of it, that it actually weighed like a gun. So it was like, they were very detailed. The costume department was very detailed about how they did stuff. You know, the hat tilts, you know, Michael was very like, hey, we should do our hats this way, you know, so that one eye is never seen. And that really always, that carried through even on the tour. It's like every time that you put the hat on, you want to try to get it to a space where you could almost see your eye because it makes it a little cooler. And I was like, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's like that element of mystery. And like all of us fans always wanted more because we couldn't like we wanted that eye contact. We wanted to see what's going on and we just couldn't get it. And I mean, but that's what makes it cool. And that's what keeps us wanting more, I guess.
Yes. And the element of mystery, and he, especially with those kind of characters, that was very important to Michael and Vincent. You know, every time that you did a video, Vincent was all about like, be real, don't pretend something. He goes, be in the moment. You know, that all the acting exercises that we did on Smooth, that also carried over to when we did The Way You Make Me Feel, because we were actually hanging out with gang members, and it was like, they were for real. Like, you know, the Crips didn't really want to hang out with me because I was the Latin boy. So it wasn't like a thing you did, which was weird. Like, I was like, okay, I hung out with the Chicanos because they wanted to talk to me.
And this is all on the set? This is actually all happening. What?
Oh, yeah. They were telling us stories. I mean, one kid was like, he goes, it's been pretty cool, you know, being able to do this with our parole officer. And he goes, yeah, they had got me on a manslaughter thing. You know, he goes, but I killed the person. And I was like, oh, okay. Okay.
You're like, all right.
Like, he goes, they just couldn't prove it. And I was like this. Oh, wow. Okay. Fascinating story. Thank you for sharing.
So they had, I've always heard about gang members, but like, it's like, you know, you never know, like, were they really? But it sounds like.
Oh yeah. Oh no, they were for real. They were real. And here's the thing, even in that situation, again, kind of going back to, here are people that people sometimes will throw them away because they're like, well, they're bad people. And here they were given an opportunity to be on a set, to experience something different than the life that they've lived. And for them to be comfortable enough to actually speak to you and talk to you about real life stuff for them, that says a lot. Like, that says a lot about, first of all, that's the way the situation was set up, the fact that they felt comfortable with you and then talked to us. I found it incredibly touching, you know, because they were starting to have another chance in life. And by doing that, this opportunity to be on that set hopefully changed their life and they became better people. And then maybe they can do outreach programs and help people from their areas. I know, like, I grew up, my parents, we lived in a pretty sketchy neighborhood when, you know, I was first, you know, when I was young, and my dad identified that it was getting worse. So we moved, but I was unaware of all the things, but I've gone back and it's still sketchy, you know, but again, there's real people that live in those areas, you know, outside of just the gangs, you know, so I found the opportunity to experience that really, really cool.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that story. Things we never knew about The Way You Make Me Feel.
This has been an excerpt from episode number 36 from the Club 30s with MJ Fangirl podcast. If you'd like to listen or watch a full episode, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, check out our Patreon. The MJ Fangirl Patreon is at patreon.com/MJFangirl, and we have ad-free early exclusive drops of all of the in-studio episodes, as well as some personal story times where I get much more candid and personal. I hope to see you over on Patreon, and shout out to our Patreon Platinum sponsor, Marlis. You are the absolute best.